From a mysterious message in a bottle to a horrifying ice monster, here are 10 of the most unbelievable and mysterious discoveries in Alaska. Number 10. Ancient remains. Alaska is full of mystery. One of the most recent mysterious discoveries is showing just how much we don't know about this ancient landscape. According to the Anchorage Daily News, the skeletons of 2 infants who lived and died around 11,500 years ago were just discovered. The remains of these children are telling a story about the ancient people who lived in Alaska near the end of the last ice age. Apparently, after testing the genetics of the human remains, scientists have determined that this is the first real evidence that all Native Americans are able to be traced back to the same small population that migrated to North America using a land bridge from eastern Siberia over 30,000 years ago. This is obviously an amazing discovery. It means that every native person from the tip of Argentina to the wild Canadian North came from the same tribe of humans that moved out from ancient China and Russia and into the New World before the land bridge vanished behind them and left them isolated for over 10,000 years before Europeans discovered the continent. The infants' remains were found inside of a burial pit in the Tanana River Valley in the center of Alaska. Both were female, and DNA evidence suggests they were likely first cousins. One of the children was only 12 weeks old when she perished, and the other was likely born premature with no chance of living. Scientists hope to discover even more amazing secrets as excavations continue. Number 9. Message in a bottle. There's nothing quite as mysterious as a message in a bottle. And while you might expect to discover a message in a bottle while strolling along the beach of a deserted island, a family in Alaska recently found one during a fishing trip. A man named Pat Brashler found the bottle while on a trip with his family and first thought it was just garbage. On closer inspection, he realized there was a note sealed inside the bottle. It ended up being a note from a family from 2007 who had apparently been on a camping trip in Houston. The letter went on to say that whoever found the bottle and the message was to call a number and tell them that their daughters are safe. This is a pretty ominous message, and when the number was called, it didn't go through. The note suggests that somebody's girls were at some point in danger, but nobody knows who those girls were because there were no full names given. The Alaska State Troopers were informed about the message, but they claimed that no missing persons cases involving a pair of females were active. This has obviously created quite a bit of a stir, but there's simply nothing that can be done. The mystery of the message in the bottle will likely haunt Pat and his family for the rest of their lives. Have you ever seen a message in a bottle? Where? When? What was in it? Tell me about your experience in the comments below. Then remember to subscribe to American Eye if you haven't already for more incredible videos just like this one. Number 8. The Ice Monster. A mysterious ice monster has been spotted in Alaska, and it's sparking comparisons to the Loch Ness Monster. A bizarre video of a strange thing swimming through the Chena River near Fairbanks in Alaska has turned the internet upside down. While some claim it's an ice monster, others are claiming it's a giant Arctic crocodile or even a zombie salmon. Unfortunately, the video is so vague that it's impossible to tell what exactly the ice monster is. According to the Alaska Bureau of Land Management, one of their employees in Fairbanks had been checking out the ice when he noticed something strange moving up the river and decided to record it. That's how the video of the ice monster was taken. Unfortunately, the creature was quite far in the middle of the river, and so it was impossible for the employee to get a good look at it or do a proper investigation. Realistically, the ice monster was probably nothing but a large Alaskan sturgeon or a bull shark. But then again, it could have just been a piece of moose hide covered in ice. There's really no way to say what the mysterious ice monster was. However, it's interesting to think that there is some kind of horrifying ice fish swimming through the rivers of Alaska, yet undetected by civilized society. Could there truly be some kind of prehistoric beasts related to the Loch Ness Monster hiding in plain sight? Number 7. The Mystery of Portlock. One of the most mysterious events in modern Alaskan history is the sudden abandonment of the small town of Portlock in the early 1900s. So far as the story goes, a man named Albert Petka discovered a hairy creature living in the forest near the village in the 1920s and even had a confrontation with the beast. He supposedly scared the creature off, but only after receiving a fatal blow to the chest. It was around this same time near the village of Portlock that there were also stories about hunters and prospectors going missing, only to have their bodies turn up in the creek with their limbs ripped off as if mangled by some kind of monstrous creature. Then came the 1930s. That was about the time that all the villagers of Portlock, where stories of the hairy monster had been circulating for decades, suddenly moved away. The post office in town shut its doors, everyone abandoned their jobs, and the area was promptly deserted. To this day, nobody knows if there truly was a massive hairy beast that frightened the villagers away from their homes, and the mysterious deaths of the prospectors and hunters have never been solved. Number 6. The Alaskan Bigfoot. A lot of people don't know that Bigfoot also lives in Alaska. While there are certainly plenty of reports of Bigfoot being seen throughout Canada and the northern United States, there have actually been quite a few sightings of an ape-like creature wandering through the Alaskan wilderness. One of the most recent Bigfoot sightings happened near Ketchikan on the side of a logging road. An unnamed person posted a video online of what genuinely appeared to be a large ape man walking through the forest. The beast had grayish hair, it was at least 7 feet, 2 meters tall, and it looked incredibly powerful. Unfortunately, the creature was extremely difficult to see in the video footage as it was hidden behind the trees. Like all other video footage of a Bigfoot encounter, its exact proportions were obscure. Of course, this discovery has given just enough evidence to make Bigfoot believers go crazy, while not giving quite enough evidence to convince anyone who was not already a believer. There's really no way to know if this random guy truly did discover Bigfoot wandering near a logging road in the forest, but it's definitely possible. The big question here is, what relation does the Alaskan Bigfoot have with other North American Bigfoots? Are they cousins? Do they come from the same lineage? Or are they all remnants of great apes that went extinct thousands of years ago? Number 5. UFOs in Alaska. Alaska has been known as a UFO hotspot for decades, but one of the most interesting cases of a UFO being discovered happened when 3 unidentified flying objects decided to play a game of tag with a Japan Airlines cargo flight for nearly an hour. This happened in 1986 on November 17th. The flight crew discovered the UFOs hovering just outside of their aircraft. And for the last 30 minutes of the incredible encounter, the objects were even tracked on both military and civilian radar. This is considered to be the most legitimate encounter of the third kind ever recorded. According to the Anchorage Press, the whole encounter was even verified by an administrator at the Federal Aviation Administration. The incident received coverage from all over the world, and to this day people believe it was the first true documentation of the discovery of alien life within our planet's atmosphere. So what went down on that day? Well, it began with lights moving strangely at a safe distance from the aircraft. But then, 2 of the spaceships appeared directly in front of the cockpit, and apparently the pilots could even feel the heat from what they assumed to be the thrusters warming their faces. For the next 50 minutes, the UFOs basically played games with the aircraft, circling it, doing all kinds of crazy maneuvers around it, and then eventually vanishing from radar and physical vision in a split second. To this day, the incident has never been explained. Number 4. Missing in Alaska. Perhaps the most disturbing discovery of all is not even a discovery, but more of a revelation. There have been a shocking number of vanishings inside an area known as the Alaskan Triangle, which is basically the equivalent of the Bermuda Triangle except far deadlier. The Alaskan Triangle stretches from the north coast to Anchorage and encompasses a huge area of mostly unexplored wilderness. There are mountain peaks, vast tundra, and a lot of places where a person can go missing. But what's truly fascinating is that state troopers almost never find bodies. And this is amazing considering that somewhere around 16,000 people have disappeared inside the Alaskan Triangle since 1988. To put that in perspective, it's about 4 out of every 1,000 people in Alaska that have gone missing, over double the national average. The most famous disappearance happened back in 1972, when the U.S. House Majority Leader Hale Boggs vanished somewhere between Juneau and Anchorage. His airplane literally disappeared. It triggered one of the largest search operations in U.S. history. Over 40 military aircrafts, 50 civilian airplanes, and hundreds of rescue workers searched for over 39 days within a massive area over rural Alaska. However, no bodies were found, no plane wreckage was discovered, and to this day there's no trace of what happened to Hale Boggs. Number 3. Supervolcano. Get ready for the end of the world. An extremely mysterious supervolcano has just been discovered hidden beneath the Aleutian Islands in Alaska. According to Science News, the supervolcano connects other existing volcanoes and is so big that if it had erupted any time in the past 5,000 years, it would have decimated civilizations all across the planet. Diana Roman, a volcanologist from Washington, D.C., claims that even though the discovery of this massive volcano has not yet been totally confirmed, there's evidence that the potential supervolcano is part of an extraordinary volcanic cluster of 6 volcanoes inside the island chain. There's a giant magma chamber about 12 miles across connecting all these different volcanoes, meaning if one of them erupts, they'll all probably erupt, making it one of the most dramatic supervolcano events in history. Luckily, there's no evidence that an eruption is going to come anytime soon. Still, if it does happen, the entire world will probably be sent back to the last ice age. Number 2. Ancient footprint. A student from the University of Alaska has recently discovered one of the oldest human footprints ever found. This discovery happened at an archaeological dig south of Fairbanks, and the footprint in question is about 1,800 years old. It's definitely the oldest of its kind ever discovered in the subarctic of North America, and it's now being used to help scientists figure out just what ancient people were doing in Alaska all those years ago. According to the head of the archaeological team, the print was found at an extremely famous place known as Swan Point, which is arguably the largest and most important archaeological site in all of Alaska. As for the footprint itself, it was likely left behind by a small child. Archaeologists claim that the child had a house at Swan Point, probably a typical indigenous summer bark house complete with a fire pit. By examining the footprint closely, researchers were able to determine that the child was likely of a healthy weight, which means that the child was probably happy. If the child was happy, it means that the rest of the inhabitants were probably happy too. This has led researchers to assume that they were probably living relatively peaceful lives with lots of ample food and water. Unfortunately, there have not been a lot of house excavations in the area. This means that researchers have to use every bit of evidence they can to decipher the ancient people that lived at Swan Point for over 14,000 years. Number 1. Prehistoric hammer. A landslide a few years ago near Sitka in Alaska produced one of the most fascinating discoveries involving early human occupation of North America. The discovery was a complete fluke. A pair of archaeologists mapping the destruction of the landslide just so happened to find what looked to be a rather unusual rock within the thousands of tons of rubble. As seasoned archaeologists, they recognized the rock immediately as being some sort of prehistoric stone tool. It ended up being the find of a lifetime. The rock, which was found shaped like an L, was once used as a bashing tool. The rock had a smooth handle and had likely been chiseled by an ancient human to resemble a hammer. Archaeologists call these types of tools hand mauls, and they were used primarily for driving wedges made of antler or bone into cedar trees to split off planks, which would then be used for a variety of buildings. It's still a mystery who exactly was responsible for handcrafting this extremely primitive hammer. Considering it came out of a landslide, it could have been buried in the dirt and snow for up to 40,000 years. But for the foreseeable future, the hand maul will be stored inside the archaeological collection at the Museum of the North at the University of Alaska. What do you think has happened to all the vanished people in Alaska? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and come back soon for another amazing video right here on American Eye.